we are going to get to another big topic this offseason, and that is, of course, the NBA draft. Ethan, I'm not sure how I want to start this, but I guess what I wrote it down in our notes was Jude's dream draft scenario.
Mm.
Um, so I guess I'll just jump into it like that. So in the last episode, you guys saw the clip that we talked about. We did 30 minutes going through the big board. We've been looking at some prospects here and there throughout the season. Obviously, we were much more focused on the actual Spurs, but still, I've been watching some highlights, just been, keeping my ears plugged to like, okay, who are like the main guys that are being talked about or whatever. So I say all of that to say that I've kind of started to draw some conclusions now on maybe some potential guys that are my favorites going into the draft. There's still some time. Obviously, we got until June. There's a lot that's going to play out. But as we inch toward the draft lottery here, I am starting to get an idea of some guys that I like. And so the thing about this dream scenario is it's a dream scenario for a reason, because the first thing is we're going to have both picks for my dream scenario to happen. So already we're going to have some lottery luck. And then on top of that, after the lottery luck, we're going to have to hope that both of these players are still there when we pick. One I feel pretty confident in, but the other, and this may give away who it is, but there's some places that have rated him in the low top 10, and then there's some places that have him like potentially going number one. With all of that or at least top 3. With all that being said, I'm going to break the surprise. The first pick, if we get somewhere in the top 5, that's the other thing we're probably going to need. The first pick is probably going to need to at least be in the top 5. Nikola Topic is who I have really started to like and come around to, Ethan. And before we dive into him, I'll just finish up what this full dream draft scenario is. Later on in the draft, if we get the Toronto pick at 7 or below, Zakari Rissache, I watched the highlights today, so I know it's Rissache, falls to us down there, and that's basically you've got your starting point guard and you've got your starting 3. Rissache is a sniper, 3-and-D sniper, but also watched a little bit of more of his tape today. Can go off the dribble, has some thunderous dunks, can play some good defense as well. But for the most part, a 3-and-D shooter, right? I think he can kind of come in and be Champagny, and obviously have a much higher ceiling. And then whenever it comes to Topic, not only is it his size at 6'6", we've seen so many point guards coming into the league kind of around that size now. Shai Gilgeous, not saying he's Shai Gilgeous, but that's just one that comes right off of mind just to start. And we've seen, just more, obviously we saw the Jeremy Sohan experiment, even though it didn't work out. You guys get what I'm getting at here whenever it comes to taller guards. Luka Doncic is one, for example, and a lot of people have made similarities to their game. I don't think that they're the same player. I would probably say Topic is a little bit below Doncic, just to be completely honest, because obviously we're seeing what Luka is right now. But at the same time, I do see why there are similarities and people make those, like saying there's shades of Luka in his game. And I think a lot of that does have to do with the height. That's why I brought that up. But more importantly, he looks like a bona fide shooter. He sees the floor. He can take people off the dribble. He can contort himself, whether he's trying to have a jelly layup or trying to make, a wraparound pass, under the basket. He can make cross court passes on the baseline. I could go on and on. Really, you guys, you just need to watch the highlights as well. But man, I've really come around on him, and I just think that the shooting, the playmaking, the size, as much as he's not the most athletic player of all time, I would still say the athleticism, driving towards the rim, the way he's able to finish through contact, and the speed he has as well, whether that's picking off passes or running in transition, and the way that he can reset a play by decelerating and then accelerate almost immediately after, on a guy off the dribble to kind of get him flat-footed a little bit. I think it would just there's so much when I watch the highlights, Ethan, and it's not just that he's Serbian and he's European, it's his play style. It just screams Spurs. And that's why I've become more why he's become honestly my favorite prospect for the Spurs this year. As of right now on April 24th. A lot of prospect profiles, a lot of scouting to go here, but as of right now on April 24th, he's become my guy that I would like to pick if we can get somewhere. And maybe if you're number one, it's a little bit different, but if we're up in that range, as of right now, he's my favorite guy that I've watched. And a lot of this does have to do with team needs, but I think his ceiling is solid as well.
I love the pick. I also, my top two guys would be Topic and Rasashe. And what's crazy is depending on the mock draft you look at, they kind of go back and forth between who gets drafted first. It seems like you said, some guys have Rasashe top three, others have him like 8, 9, 10. And then Topic is kind of the same thing. A lot of people have him like at 4, 5, and then others have him at like 9, 10. So
Right.
it'll be up to the Spurs if it goes the way you said. Like, who do you take first? Because it'll really be like a toss up, honestly. But just to speak about Topic, his comp on one of the mock drafts I was looking at was Goran Dragic. I think that that's extremely fair, but he's Goran Dragic that's 6'6", and I would say has higher upside as a shooter, at least to start off. Dragic became a good shooter. He wasn't a great shooter when he came into the league. Another comparison that I was talking to you about earlier, and this one's kind of a blend. Okay, so I want you to think through this with me. Take Josh Giddey's kind of athleticism and size, but then add the erraticism and like raw finishing ability of a Manu Ginobili. I know he's like Manu's a
Ethan's
Hall of
not
Fame.
outrageous for saying this. Like I totally see your train of thought, and that's
Mhm.
why if you go back to, not to interrupt you, but
No, go
if you
ahead.
go back to our last mock draft, the clip that we were talking about, the early Spurs draft prospects preview, Kevin O'Connor says he like jitterbugs around the court.
He does. And when you watch him, I mean, I get the Luca comparison too, because when you watch Luca, it's like, how is he doing this? Like, he's not doing it crazy fast. He's not doing anything crazy quick. It's just like he plays with such a high intelligence, gets to his spots, and can contort his body and finish at any angle with either hand. So that's what reminded me of Ginobili, especially when he comes off of high pick and rolls, almost from half court at full
Yep.
speed, just downhill play. And he gets 17 points per game, I'm pretty sure, like 16 and a half. So he's going to help us score. But I think his number one strength, at least for us, is just being a natural high IQ playmaker. He's got
Yes.
some incredible passing ability. He sees the floor very well. He's best probably pushing the tempo, which is how we play. So that's great. But he also has the ability to slow it down in the half court, run pick and roll, say with Wembanyama, Jeremy Sohan, or whatever, and make plays for other guys because of the eyes in the back of his head. So I really like the pick. It also connects with the Spurs and the forward board players, et cetera, et cetera. But just to speak on Rasashe real quick, I think
Yes,
the three
please.
and D, ability at 6'7", 6'8". He's got a lot of raw ability as well. I think when he comes in and immediately is a starting small forward replacement for Julian without way higher upside. He can do what Julian's doing right now, which is play good defense, space the floor, move without the ball. I think he has higher upside than that. I think he can eventually take guys off the dribble. He's got nice athleticism, like you said. He's got the raw tools to kind of fill out his frame and be a nice, strong player. I think one of his comps is Harrison Barnes, who was like a 3 and D player and now has kind of become an ISO scorer. For when the Kings need a basket, they give it to him and let him post up. Like maybe he has that in his game down the road. Not something he's doing right now. But I think he also is a need for the Spurs that could immediately make an impact at that starting small forward spot.
Yeah, I like I think he has a higher ceiling
Mm-hmm.
than potentially than Harrison Barnes, but I
Mm-hmm.
see the shades of Harrison Barnes in his game. Like I don't think that's a crazy comp because there's a lot of kind of skills in that range that he does have. And he's also 6'9". So he's someone who can play that, he's more naturally a 3, but he's someone who can play the 4 as well, which is nice for versatility, brings some size, some length, all that stuff. And the other thing is Victor did an interview praising him late in
Mm-hmm.
the year. That's the other reason kind of why he's on there. Um, but I also want to say that as much as that's my dream draft scenario, that's what I am at right here on April 24th. Who are my two favorite players if we can get both picks and everything works out perfectly for us. It's kind of a lot of caveats. Um,
Yeah.